The super-sized bowl is happening this weekend in New Orleans. And normally, you know, it's an event where people drink a lot of beer, but this is not a beer channel. This is a cocktail channel. So I thought it'd be really great to make a New Orleans cocktail for you and your friends, family, or enemies, whoever you're drinking with this Sunday, to enjoy. But what we're gonna do is make a batched version, what you call a freezer door cocktail, to where we pre-make the entire cocktail, including the water dilution, put it in a bottle, and you can shove it in your freezer. And then, you know, when you're ready to drink, whether it's just one serving or one for all your friends, you just pour it into a glass and it's ready to go. You don't have to do anything. But before we jump into that, if you like what we're doing on this channel, hit subscribe so you never miss a video. Now, the Sazerac, the official cocktail of New Orleans, this is one of those that is a bit shrouded in mystery. It goes back to the mid-1800s in New Orleans. And there's a bit of contention on what the base spirit is. You know, some people saying it's cognac, some people saying it's rye whiskey. It seems like, you know, the most recent research indicates that a true Sazerac of original origins is rye whiskey. I don't think it really matters because rye tastes better in this cocktail. And a Sazerac is really easy. A Sazerac is basically just sugar syrup, or a sugar cube, you know, the way they used to make it, and Peychaud's bitters. The bitters owned by the Sazerac company. These are really fantastic, and you cannot make a Sazerac. Hell, you could make a Sazerac with bourbon or cognac, and as long as you use these bitters, it's still probably gonna taste like a Sazerac. This is the most important part, not optional. All right, so to start, to make just a regular Sazerac, we're gonna get a mixing glass. And like I said, in the past, when making a Sazerac or an old fashioned, people would use sugar cubes because that's just how things were done back in the day. I don't think that's necessary. In fact, the sugar never completely dissolves. You know, you put the sugar cube in there, the bitters, you muddle it. At the end of your, you know, when you finish your beverage, there's still that sugar down there. I prefer to use a sugar syrup. I like Demerara syrup. You know, just 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. You heat it up. It's pretty easy. I prefer that because it mixes in the drink instantly, but also it adds really great mouthfeel, which I really enjoy. So we're gonna start with 1/2 ounce of sugar syrup. Put that into our mixing glass. Next up, rye whiskey. Now, traditionally you would use Sazerac rye. I don't have any of that. You know, Sazerac's fine. It's all right. I don't dislike it. It's a decent rye whiskey, but we're gonna use George Dickel. You can use whatever rye you enjoy or you have kicking around. I think what's more important than the specific rye is the ABV, the alcohol content. Anytime you're making a cocktail, particularly a spirit-forward cocktail, try and find something that is a little higher percentage. You know, a standard spirit is around 40%. Shoot for 45 to 50 for any spirit you're using in like a stirred or shaken cocktail. George Dickel is 45%. This is pretty good stuff, and it's hella cheap. This was like 21 bucks for me. We're gonna do 2 ounces of, you know, whatever rye whiskey you got. Into our mixing glass. And then the Peychaud bitters. I just opened this. So if you've never used bitters or you don't use a lot of bitters, it's not a real consistent dash. You know, most recipes will say, oh, this cocktail, you know, 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 dashes. You know, a Sazerac people do anywhere between like 2 and 6. But because I just opened this, when you like take a look at this, you don't really get a lot when you first open it. The less juice there is in here, the more of a heavier dash you're gonna get. So I'm gonna do probably 4 or 5 dashes. We'll go 6. I love this stuff. And if your cocktail isn't red from Peychaud's, then you're probably not using enough. And then we're gonna give it a really good stir with a bar spoon. I wouldn't worry too much about over stirring. It is incredibly hard to over dilute a cocktail just by stirring. Whereas if you're shaking a cocktail, like we do a lot on this channel with tiki drinks, if you go too long, there is the risk of over diluting or adding too much water. Ideally in a cocktail, you're shooting for about 20% dilution. Grab a pre-chilled double rocks glass, add a block of ice, strain your beverage in there. Just gonna peel a lemon. Now when picking out a citrus to zest, try and find something that feels like it's got a really thick, firm skin on there. You know, generally those have a lot more oils. We're just gonna express that over the top. Wipe it down. Okay, so I know a lot of you have been probably screaming, saying, what about the absinthe? What about the absinthe? Because traditionally in a Sazerac, you do an absinthe wash. And what that is you take your glass, you pour some absinthe in there, swirl it around. In New Orleans, you know, they throw it in the air, do this whole show, and then you dump it out. I don't think that's a particularly efficient way to use absinthe, particularly if you know, absinthe's kind of expensive and you're dumping a lot of that out. I prefer to use an atomizer. These are hella cheap. This is, I don't know, a couple dollars in Amazon. There's a link in my affiliates, an affiliate link down below if you want to do that. Now you can do the absinthe rinse. Absinthe is non-negotiable. You do need this. It is not a Sazerac without that. But again, you can do an absinthe wash or just get a little atomizer. And what we're gonna do is just, and that is a Sazerac. Let's give it a taste. Perfect. That is why Sazerac is my favorite stirred cocktail. But we're not here to go over tasting notes or talk about how much I love a Sazerac. We are here to make a bashed Sazerac so you and your buddies can enjoy it while watching the super-sized bowl this weekend. It is super easy, super efficient, and you know what? It lasts a really long time in your freezer, like forever. Forever. So there's no reason you should make this. Cue the montage. To start, grab an empty whiskey bottle or any container that can hold 750 milliliters. Then measure out 122 milliliters, or about 4 1/4 ounces of syrup, followed by 25 milliliters of bitters. That's a little over 3/4 of an ounce. And now the booze. We're gonna add 488 milliliters of rye. That is about 16.5 ounces. We're gonna add 115 milliliters of water. That's about 3 3/4 ounces. Then put the whole thing in the freezer and enjoy later. And that is our bashed Sazerac. Again, I didn't do any absinthe in the mixture here because I thought it would be fun for my, you know, supersized bowl guests to atomize their own absinthe. It's kind of a fun thing, you know, you just kind of spritz it over your glass. But if you don't want to do that, just put about 3/4 of an ounce of absinthe in the mix, and that'll add about enough flavor to it. This is one of my favorite things to do, not just for, you know, your big parties, but it's nice having a bashed cocktail in the freezer that you can just grab and pour. You know, even though a Sazerac or an old fashioned or a Manhattan, there's, you know, literally any stirred cocktail you can put in the freezer. But you know, sometimes I'm watching Casablanca for like the 100th time, and you know, maybe had a few, and I decide I'm gonna have another, and I stagger out in the garage. I'm not gonna make a cocktail, that's how you break glass. But I can just pull this out of the freezer, pour myself a drink, and go back to watching my movie in no time. Freezer cocktails are where it's at. And if you've ever done this, you know, comment down below and let me know what you batched. I'd really be interested in knowing what you did. I'm also interested in knowing what you think we should do on this channel. Please give me some suggestions on what you'd like to see me make next. And until next time, cheers.